Hello everybody and welcome to a special broadcast here from the Rangers Review with myself, Derek, Clark and Jonny McFarlane, as Rangers head out to Armenia to take on Alashkert tomorrow. I'm sure you've seen the headlines. A number of notable absentees from the flight, namely the manager. We knew that was a COVID situation at the club. The statement came out yesterday. It appears that the manager is not on the flight heading out, Jonny. The two goalkeepers, John McLaughlin and Alan McGregor, Calvin Bassey, James Tavernier, not with the squad either, Scott Wright and Ryan Kent. I'm not too sure if I've missed anyone else. Of course, John Lundstrom is suspended anyway, as is Kemar Roof. They don't travel either. What do you make of the squad that are heading out there, Jonny?
Well, first of all, what I would say is Alashkert are not a good side. So we need to put it all into context of, it's a big match. Rangers need to win that game, or it would seriously help from a financial point of view to get into the Europa League because there's a lot of money there. But we're stats geeks. We like to have a look at what the data tells us. And in the last game, it was absolutely ridiculous. It was 0.01 or something like that. So that's the first thing. Rangers still have more than enough quality to get through. I think first of all, what we need to say is, and I think Callum Milligan's already commented on this on Facebook, saying, let's hope we can win it for Gerrard. You would want to say to all the players, everyone's absolutely hoping that they are absolutely fine and not suffering the negative effects of this disease that we know that can be very, very detrimental to people's health. So we just hope that first and foremost everyone doesn't have the sort of severe elements that can come through this. Secondly, moving on to the actual team itself, I'm just looking at our predicted lineups, Derek, and we've kind of gone for very, very similar lineups, if not exactly the same.
Yeah.
Basically, mine is McCrory, Patterson, Barisic, Goldson, Hillander, Arfield, Davis, Kamara, Hadji, Aribo, Morelos. And I think, is yours the same? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
So we've gone for the same lineups, and you've just got to say, that is that's a high quality side. The big question will be about Robbie McCrory, obviously, because this is him being thrust into a really, really important game, first and foremost. And he's not had a lot of time in those Rangers nets, has he? So that's going to be a big one. But you know what? The club have sent him out on loan. He's been out at Livingston last season, and he's had experience the Premier League. So Scottish Premiership. So he should be perfectly comfortable going up against a side like Alashkert, especially one that in the first leg showed such little impact going forward. So I'd be less concerned about that. Obviously, James Tavernier's the captain, and losing him is a big deal. But when you've got Nathan Patterson, who we talked about this morning, and I described as a generational talent who can come in, I don't think any Rangers fan or anyone covering the club would say that's a problem. He can slot in. Borna Barisic has had some fitness issues, but he's on the plane, and he's terrific. So there's no worries there with Bassey being out. The central defence is unaffected. In midfield, pretty much unaffected. And then probably the biggest miss, I would say, given that it's a game where you're probably wanting to create, is Ryan Kent not being on the flight, and Scott Wright, who's kind of, I've also described in these videos as like a baby Kent. He's like Ryan Kent a couple of years ago. Him missing as well means that they're maybe missing a bit of creative spark in there. But listen, this is Alashkert. You've got Joe Aribo, you've got Yanis Hadji, you've got Cedric Inton, you've got Alfredo Morelos. There's more than enough to get through. Listen, we can start talking about Celtic. Derek, I'm sure you're going to ask me about that, and I see in the comments people are asking about that. But I think until we get to tonight's presser, we'll get a better idea of how long these individuals are having to isolate for and where the issues are. But it's not good news. But ultimately, I think Rangers have got more than enough to cope.
Yeah, I agree. Jay Bonbon getting in touch. My only concern is that the keeper situation. It's probably more than likely that Robbie McCrory will be between the sticks. I remember speaking to Tony Craig, who was the goalie coach at Livingston, and he was going through a bit of a troubling time around about last Christmas time, where he lost his place in the team and he was struggling a little bit. But certainly he's won that the Rangers coaching staff will be hoping to come through and stake his claim and challenge for that number one position. And you don't get a bigger occasion to stake your claim than tomorrow night, of course, when McGregor and McLaughlin are available again. They'll come back in. But what an opportunity it is for this lad, Johnny, to really show what he can do. If he's called into action, that is.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that Steven Gerrard's often talked about throughout his career. Even when he was at Liverpool, he always harks back to when he was a kid and how when he was coming through, he targeted someone and went after their place. And he always says, it's not given to you. You have to go and take it. It's professional football. It's cutthroat. You have to go and take your chances, opportunity to show what he can do. So it's up to him to go out there and show that he's ready to become a Rangers player. I remember Alan McGregor coming in for Rangers. I think Paul Le Guen had gone out and bought Lionel Letizia, and people thought that given his background and career that he would obviously be the number one. But McGregor came in and just took it. Now it's a different time, it's a different environment, it's a different scenario. But when you get given these opportunities in life, you've just got to grasp them with both hands, and hopefully that's what young McCrory can go and do.
Yeah, I think he will do that. Callum asked, will Gerrard be available for the Old Firm on Sunday? Not too sure. We'll find out more, of course, when that press conference takes place at 7 o'clock this evening. I'd imagine Gary McAllister will front up with regards to that. But Steven,
one thing on that, Derek. Obviously, the news that Michael Beale is in Armenia, which I think the initial report suggested that Michael Beale wasn't going to be there, so it was just going to be Gary McAllister. So I think that's a real positive, and obviously Michael Beale is widely considered the sort of tactical guru, the brains behind the way Rangers operate, and certainly he's the main man in terms of the coaching element of the team. It's very much a managerial team. I don't want to diminish anyone else's role in it, but Michael Beale is really, really important on that front. And I think a lot of people who watch Rangers from a tactical point of view were very buoyed to see that footage coming in from Sky Sports, where in the background Michael Beale's popped up. Because at that point everyone thought, no, Michael Beale's has not made it. So it's good that he's there with Gary McAllister.
Yeah, with Gerrard not heading out to this game, Johnny, sometimes you see managers, if they're suspended, they're in the stand and they can communicate via telephone or what have you down towards the touchline. This won't be the case with Gerrard. It's going to be interesting to see what happens if he just puts his full trust in the coaching team and just watches from afar, or if he has any input, and if he can have any input on what's happening.
Yes, well, obviously we're speculating here, but I would imagine he would want to, if he's able to, he'll want to have some kind of input in the game. But it depends on what style of manager you are. It doesn't really matter if it's a football manager or a manager in any walk of life. You're either someone who wants to get your hands on everything, or you might be quite comfortable to delegate that and leave it in the hands of someone else. I don't think there's many football managers though that would feel that way about a Europa League qualifier. It might be different, going up against, I don't know, Livingston at home or something like that in the Scottish Premiership. But, Europa League qualifier is maybe a different kettle of fish. So I would imagine if Steven Gerrard can, he'll obviously be watching the game and trying to give his input.
Yeah.
And modern technology, that's a lot more achievable than it was maybe 10, even certainly 20 years ago, but even 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. To Josh Henderson, I got in touch, missed the start, who's out. Just touching there, Gerrard's not made the flight. Tavernier, the two goalkeepers, McLaughlin, McGregor, Calvin Bassey, Ryan Kent is not on the flight, as is Scott Wright. That's it. I don't think I've missed anyone else, have I, Johnny, with regards to that? Of course, Lundstrom and Roof are suspended anyway, so they wouldn't have travelled all the same. Heading into Sunday then, all eyes will be focused on that, and then what sort of Rangers side will line up against Celtic. If you look at without the likes Kent and Wright, there's a distinct lack of pace, you could argue, up front. Would that concern you?
Yes, but we're again, it's a difficult situation because in the absence of the full information, we don't know. There might be, for example, Scott Wright, I think, missed the previous game, didn't he? So wasn't in the squad for the game against Ross County. So it might well be that that Scott Wright's got a knock, or it might well be that he's been already self-isolating. And therefore, the amount of time that he has to do that could have elapsed in time for the Old Firm game. But we just don't know. I mean, what we can say, without doubt, is that this is not the preparation that anyone would have wanted for such a massive game. You know, there's no doubt in, and there's no shying away from the fact Celtic are massively in form, especially going forward, especially middle to front. So that's a major factor. And you know, Rangers are going to have to piece together a team for this game against Alashkert, although it's still, from the ones that we selected, as I've already said, pretty strong. And it may be the case that that's the case again. But fortunately, you know, Rangers have a really strong squad. They have a lot of strength and depth. And you have to feel that, you know, that whatever happens in that game, there's still plenty of opportunity to pull it back. It's not decisive. It's the first Old Firm game of the season. You know, there's plenty of time left in that league. So while it will be a difficult difficult match, against Celtic, you know, it's one that Rangers can go into with the squad that they have and feel like they can put on a good show. And if it doesn't go right, then, you know, time will give them enough chance to pull things round, I think.
Yeah, it could perhaps galvanise the squad, this, couldn't it, John? I mean, I remember seeing it a lot in the 90s under Walter Smith. They were decimated at times. I remember one trip up to Aberdeen when they played the kids. Celtic matches as well spring to mind, when you get Colin Scott in goals and all this sort of stuff. So it's nothing new. So it might work to Rangers' favour that it's all sort of arms to the pump.
Yeah, the one that I remember was the most was the Aberdeen game when it was the title was on the line at Ibrox in the early 90s. And you had Ali McCoy's coming back after a long period out, and there was just footage of him sort of in the dressing room. Everyone else is celebrating, and Ali is just completely like a bust ball. He's just head down, he's just absolutely knackered because he had to come on and run about for the last half an hour, and he's completely shattered. And I think there was a few injuries in that game. John Brown got a bad injury. And it was a difficult one. There was a lot of kids thrown in that day. And listen, there's been loads of elements of that happening in the past with Rangers, especially in the 90s. I was talking to someone earlier on today about the game in 1997 when Eric Bo Anderson scored the double. There was issues around selection and fitness at that time as well. And listen, like I said, there's been lots of examples, and maybe, you know, Rangers are just going to have to show that same grit that they showed on these previous occasions and hunker down. And there's no excuses, you know, so they just might as well go at it. And in a way, it might be quite sort of psychologically freeing, you know. They've just got to go out and show what they're capable of, and we'll see where the chips land. But obviously, the key thing is tonight at 7 o'clock, we're going to get this press conference, and we're going to hear exactly probably what the lay of the land is, and how many players are going to be out, and how many players, because we don't know some of these players. Like, for example, the players that haven't travelled. These are just players that haven't travelled. Yeah, we don't know that it could be a knock. It could be something else. That's just the nature of it at the moment until we get that clarity.
Yeah, of course, I forgot to mention Fashion Sakala hasn't travelled either. We know that he was injured for Ross County, so we're not too sure about that. But we'll find out more, as Johnny says, at 7 o'clock. That'll do us there. We'll bring you all the fallout from that press conference in tomorrow morning's briefing ahead of tomorrow night's crucial Europa League clash with Alashkert in Armenia. Remember, you can subscribe to the Rangers Review for £2.99 a month. For top quality journalism covering the team you love. That will do us there, Johnny. We'll speak to you again